Hello, welcome to South Sea Matters. I am John Sands. I'm in a different location today, as you can probably see, because I'm very lucky to meet up with someone who we can now say is as seen on TV, and that is Clarke Reynolds. Welcome, Clarke. Welcome to South Sea Matters.
Hey, mate.
It's a pleasure to be able to chat to you before you get too astronomically expensive to book.
Well, that's what they say, don't they?
Yeah, that's true. So thank you so much for taking the time out on this horrible wet day.
It is April, isn't it? I'm just making sure we're not doing this in November or December.
It feels a bit like November, doesn't it? Yes, it is, but the weather's going to get better, apparently. So most people will know who you are, but just for those people who are hidden under a rock somewhere and don't know who Clarke Reynolds is, just introduce yourself a little bit, please.
Well, we're in my studio. So that gives you a great sense of who I am. So I am actually a visual artist, and also I'm registered blind, which is ironic, an oxymoron if you want to call it. And I work in Braille. I'm the only known Braille artist in the UK, and the only one in the world I know that works with colour and Braille. Because I'm a visual artist. And the idea is I'm bridging the visual world with the tactile world, because my art is there to be touched. Yeah, there's literally, when you come to my exhibitions, you can physically touch the artwork.
So it's all apart from smell, it's everything, isn't it? There, and this piece behind us is one that you're doing for the upcoming coronation, which is not very long, and you might not be able to see it. People watching here won't be able to see, but actually each of these dots is a profile of the Queen and the King, isn't it?
It is indeed, and that's what the misconception of Braille is. Everyone thinks it's about the individual dot. It's not. What it is it's the patterns it creates. As an artist from the age of 6, and ironically, I knew I wanted to be an artist from the age of 6. Yeah. So I see in patterns. So for me, Braille was a no-brainer. And people say to me, "Oh God, how do you do what you do?" Is because it's all down to memory. So I work in colour. It's all about memory. I've been an artist for such a long time. It's like riding a bike, isn't it? It's that phrase. And I enjoy what I do. And ironically, going blind has made me a better artist and a better person.
So you weren't born blind. The vision has gradually faded over time for you. How was that journey?
So I lost my sight in my right eye from the age of 4. So between 4 and 6, I remember it like it was yesterday. It's really strange what you remember. I went to the QA hospital every 4 weeks. I remember my doctor's name, Dr. Tudor.
Oh, right.
I know, it's crazy.
Shout out to Dr. Tudor.
Dr. Tudor has probably passed away now. And I had the patches. I looked like a pirate. And so it went, but I never looked upon it as a disability. I hate the word disability, but a disability. I went through life. I bumped into door frames, as you do. Wore glasses for 30 years. And I knew I wanted to be an artist at the age of 6. I went to Art Space, or Aspects, as it was called at the time. And just going there, growing up in a deprived family, there's no creativity in my family whatsoever. Growing up in the block of flats that just been torn down, Leamington House.
All right,
So I lived there with not the best family, alcoholic stepdad. No, we're talking about cost of living now. I mean, we grew up on known as Teddy Bear's breakfast, which is basically bread and hot milk and sugar. That's, that after school, that's what we, to fill our stomachs.
Because it'll bulk out.
It bulk out. So, I grew up with lots of hardship, but one thing has always made me constant in my life, and that was art. And I knew just going to that space, it literally saved my life. Yeah. If I never found out art, I wouldn't be talking to you today.
No.
And I've said that many a times. And unfortunately, my younger brother, who was just turned 40, would have been turned 40, passed away at 35 years of age in the shop corner of in Newquay, homeless. He never found art. I did, and he chose the path of addiction because, back then, you either an addict or you were in jail, or you were on benefits, and that was the life basically.
And that's true. I mean, that's the life belt that was chucked to you to help you. And it's funny when you look at that, and if someone says, okay, when I was 6 years old, I started losing my sight. Everyone goes, oh. But in effect, that has been a life belt for you. That's pulled you out. You talk about your brother in Newquay. Well, this has been a bit of a salvation for you. Am I right?
It has, of course. I mean, ironically, in my teens, I got bad kidneys. So I finished school at the age of 14. You know, the only GCSE I got was A in art, basic coursework. And that was a really tough time. I was so ill, I couldn't use my hands. And as any artist would tell you, you know, these are, our weight in gold. And so that was a really tough time. But I always remained positive that one day I would, get back into the art. And, I did an MVQ, diploma, and then I did my degree in model making. Yeah. And then I got my degree and I became a dental model maker. Yeah. Now,
so was that for false teeth? Is that what that was for dentistry? Because about making a mould and modelling.
Yeah, it was really strange. So when you're growing up and you're like, kids say, "Oh, you're going to be a national," or "I'm going to be an archaeologist." It's not like I turned around and said, "Oh, I'm going to be a dental model maker." Yeah. It wasn't like because I never knew that, but I was fascinated with the job, and it didn't feel like a job because it was still creative. I was still doing these crazy paintings at home. The only reason why I got a degree in model making because I wanted a technical degree behind me. And it was great. So you go get your Alginate done and it'd come to me, and depending on what work you wanted, I'd make a different model. And then they get it sent upstairs and they got to scan it. And then we had this machine called Gary from Germany. And this machine called Gary basically milled the teeth out in zirconia pucks. And he's like really had all these different angles. And so I loved it. And then that's when I started to notice a dark shadow in my left eye. And I thought it was tiredness because it was really fine detail work I was doing. I thought maybe I need a stronger pair of glasses. So I went to opticians. First of all, I went to my Specsavers and they said, "Oh no, nothing's wrong." I said, "There is." They sent me to an independent opticians. They sent me to a hospital. I went to the hospital, had the scans, and then I was sitting there on the machine and then waiting, and about 3 or 4 doctors came out, looked in your eye, up, down, left, right, as they do with the bright light. First question they asked me is, do I drive? Now, I did drive because I can still drive with one eye. And I said yes. And they said, hand your license over, you're going blind. And that's how you're told.
And that was how they put it to you?
Yeah, it's literally ripping off a Band-Aid, right? And it was really strange. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going blind. No. It was like, oh, okay, I'm going blind, right. I'm going to be the artist. I'm going to be the artist I wanted to be at 6 years old.
So when you going on this journey, okay, did your art change from necessity or did it change because you were just adapting? How did that work?
I think adapting because I still wanted to do art. So obviously I used to love drawing. I was really good at pencil drawings. Animals. I used to love drawing animals. Couldn't draw people. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's funny. Isn't it?
Maybe that's something to do with my eyes. Maybe. Yeah. But I was always a fan of dots. Always from literally from when I was younger. Big fan of pointillism.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I was going to ask a little bit more about what exactly that is.
So pointillism is a build-up of an image made up of dots. So one of the most famous pointillist artists is Suru. Right. And when you see these big paintings, they look like complete paintings, but you put that under a microscope, it's just built up of tiny tiny dots. Now I used to do that with felt tips, with pastels. When you used to do in school, and you used to they used to say, "Oh, draw a vegetable or draw your shoe." Yes, I used to do it in pointillism. And it's really strange. So I see those pixelated imagery. I see them as whole. How my brain is as my eyesight has got decreased. I see them as a whole.
So you're losing the gaps in between, basically.
So what happens with learning Braille, it was a no-brainer, wasn't it? It was like, it was meant to be. And I'm self-taught with Braille. So someone gave me a Perkins typewriter, beautiful machine. It hasn't changed since the 1930s. If you've not seen one, check it out on YouTube. They look like an organ, and they weigh a ton, right? You've only got 6 keys. So you're physically playing an organ, because you've only got those 6 keys. And I did it. And then I did a piece using buttons, and I took it to someone who could physically read Braille, and they read it out. It was the alphabet. And a light bulb went on. It's like, why isn't this not an art form? Just like a typographer uses a letter, I can use a dot. And also the dot gives me more power because a dot is a vessel to hold the information of a word. So I'm basically a Braille typographer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at I love the fab. You can't see it on camera. Actually, I'll go and grab it. Come and grab it and just show it. Yeah. So that is something you and me know from our childhood, which is a fab lolly. And when you're close up to it, it's very difficult to make it out, isn't it?
Yes, and that's the idea of pixelating images. So they're called fab to touch, ironically, and these. So I am inspired by the Andy Warhol kind of how he did his soup cans.
So everyday objects.
Yeah, the everyday objects, and the idea of play around. Everyone knows it's a fab lolly from a distance. You know, and when you get closer, it blurs.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a metaphor of kind of how I see the world.
I see.
And it's really clever, but embedded in these fab to touch pieces are stories: the good, the bad, and the ugly of sight loss. So it's not just as a visual reference of a fab lolly, but in Braille. It reads a story. So this one actually tells a story of the plastic cone underneath a crossing that tells a blind person, if there's no sound in the pelican crossing, to cross the road. So if you didn't know that, it's these little hidden gems.
Well, it's like and again, you're right, even in street furniture, such as the, before you get to a crossing, the little dots on the floor as well. So it's there if you're going to notice it.
That was invented in Japan in the 1950s. He invented it for his brother, the guy invented, so he could access street life. And again, they're there specifically made for vision impaired people.
Yeah.
People don't realise that because it's an everyday thing, isn't it? And then I took that everyday thing, and for the aspect show that I did last year, which is a year ago, today, called Journey by Dots, which is basically what I'm telling you now, but literally in Braille version, I made my own tactile paving slabs, but in Braille, using exactly the same dots, the depth and the shape, and you could stand on and sit on my art. Because
you don't, and as someone who doesn't have a visual impairment, it all blurs. It's so funny to use that as quite ironic, isn't it? It all blurs. You don't see it.
You don't see it.
No, because it's there and you don't know why it's there. So you're in effect blind to something that is there for someone who's visually impaired, which is quite a concept. Isn't it?
It is, but the thing with learning Braille is I learnt it, but where can I physically use it?
Yeah.
And that's the most depressing thing about learning Braille, because the only law for Braille is on hazardous materials and medicine.
Yeah.
So if you pick up your medicine and on that cardboard, it's the worst Braille in the world, because you imagine it on cardboard, right? So once it's done, it's packaged up, it's then put on the shelf, it's handled. Time it gets to me,
so it's flattened out then.
There's dots of illegible.
Yeah.
Right? So why? So why can't I go into a restaurant and get a Braille menu?
Yeah.
Why isn't there Braille on every toilet? And that should be law, because 99.9% of blind people will go in the wrong gender toilet. Yeah. I've done it.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing.
Because they will put it on a disabled toilet. I've seen that before, Braille on the actual sign on a disabled toilet, but I haven't ever seen it on the normal toilet.
But the Braille
Yeah.
is always up here, isn't it?
Of course it is.
Why?
Yes. Yes.
Why is it up here?
Yeah.
So for me, you inspire vision impaired children for their independence, right? We all push the door there. We all push it by the handle. Why isn't there a Braille right by there, standardised? And it doesn't have to be that small dot.
No.
You speed read, I can speed touch.
Yeah.
So all you need is a giant M, F, D, or U.
Of course, yeah.
And I just put my hand out, and I know. I know that's. And also, you brand it. You brand it to the organisation. So you use colour. So it's not an afterthought.
No. Fascinating, it really is. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times now aspects. So you've got a relationship with that gallery. Just explain a little bit about that.
Well, obviously, I used to go to Cottage Grove School, and they took me to Aspects, which was an art space.
Yeah.
And I said that's when I knew I wanted to be an artist, just by literally going to that building and experiencing it. And when I left for university and I came back, I joined Aspects Associate, but I'd never made the connection that Aspects was the same Aspects in the building.
I see. Yeah.
Because obviously I moved away and obviously you grew up in these things, and then when I realised it, and it was like I come full circle, and then to actually be asked to have an exhibition at Aspects, a first solo exhibition at Contemporary Gallery, 3 months exhibition at the place that inspired me. It was overwhelming, I know I've had multiple exhibitions. I've had a solo show in London, which is a big gallery.
I saw that. Yeah.
But the thing is, having a show at Aspects just meant so much. It's like a rock star doing a gig.
It's like going back to your old school
Yeah.
and you're a football star or something like that. Yeah, no, incredible.
And what was so amazing, it was called Journey by Dots, and the whole gallery was in the dark, because that's what I wanted, because lights hurt my eyes, and I wanted the audience to feel like there was a child again, because art makes you feel like a child every day.
Yeah.
And the gallery, obviously, you could run around. It felt like a playground. Someone recorded a bunch of scouts in there, jumping, running around on my art, and that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, totally is, and it's an amazing place.